Hot Off the Press has some brand new stencils and some embossing folders. Now I have to tell you, you want to sit down and relax because the design team has created so many techniques that this is going to be a longer webisode. I hope that's okay.
And we have some beautiful backgrounds, focals, and words, and they all play very well together.
And speaking of play, come play with us. Well, here are the stencils and the embossing folders. Let's identify them.
We have all over swirls in a 6x6 stencil, fancy heart and words.
And then we have the wind and waves. Yes, isn't that fun embossing folder as well as the birthday words. Now we're going to start with the stencil. So I'm going to scoot these away.
Right, and specifically the all over swirl stencil, which is just beautiful all over for backgrounds, etc.
And you mentioned that it's 6x6. And then as I turn it over, I just want to show you that there are ideas. Because it's hot off the press, there are always ideas. And I think we actually have these to show you today.
Right.
And you mentioned that they're 6x6. And actually, Jamie from Crafters Workshop creates these for us. She does the manufacturing.
Okay.
We do the designing. So
and she
that's
does a
nice.
good job. They're really a sturdy weight plastic so that they'll last you a long time.
That's right. And what can you do? You're going to scoot that over?
I am.
Okay, here is the first. Now, this was one, there's a Simply Stencils personal shopper, and that's where this design came from, although it's been slightly modified. And I think it's just such a really neat look, and when you kind of glance at it, well, was the purple added, or what was the background color?
Was it the other way around? Well, I'll show you. First of all, here's the purple.
Okay.
So we start with the purple. You lay that stencil on top of there, and then you get your Stays-On opaque white. This is cotton white. And you just take that little stamp pad and you just go over it like that. I'm not actually going to do it, but you see the process. You just go over like that, and then when you lift it, what you get is what you see there.
Okay, so that's why that kind of milky color is right there. How easy is that?
It's a really simple process.
Now, just to show you also, this is a Stitch Dazzles that isn't stitched. Those little dots are the stitching areas, but they also just make a really nice design.
Right, and then you can back it with paper and place it on one of these little designs here. This hexagon that you see is from a design toolkit.
Right, it's from actually the number 4, and let me bring in, let's see, it's got all of these pieces.
Lots of different shapes on there.
Right.
It's a fun one to use.
And there's a hexagon. You can leave it this size, you can make it larger, you can cut it out and then mat it around to make it bigger, so lots of options. So this is our first one, and I'm sure that it has an inside, so you get another look at that all over pattern.
So that's a really simple way to use the stencil. You just quickly ink through it, and you can use a lot of different kinds of inks and a lot of different kinds of cardstock.
And speaking of simple inking, will you bring the stencil back? Because I think just to show it turned on its point, and to position it like so, you're going to get another look. And I think that's something you don't often think about when you know.
You might be thinking, I need to fill up that whole paper, but it's kind of nice to leave some white in there. It just gives kind of a dramatic effect, and then you just ink the edges a little bit, and then this was just done with a fluid chalk ink pad.
Right, and those little sparkly bits are done with the ice stickles.
Right.
So I really would think of these as winter, but look what a springtime look it has.
I love the butterfly on. That's from our cutting die, our
3 butterflies.
3 butterflies cutting die.
Yes.
And then it also has the shadow behind, which was done on vellum.
It's getting close to see that.
I'm trying to look it up.
It's the dot vellum.
There it is, yeah.
Pretty, pretty, pretty. More stickles in the center.
Some petaloo flowers.
Absolutely, a little hello down there. What an easy to make, but such a striking card. And inside, this doesn't have an inside, so Paulette isn't going to show it. Yeah. Now, this is another example of using the stencil simply with inks, or I guess you could do chalks the same way.
Right.
Now,
and I'm going to grab that stencil from you
if I
quickly.
give it back to you.
I'm just going to let you know how this is done. You know, you can't really see it on here. I'm just going to let's see. Just so that you can see it, I'm going to put it on a different colored cardstock. So normally this would be white back here, and you would start with a Memento Rich Cocoa ink pad. you're ready to ink through, but you want that, let's look at the card again.
Yeah.
You want that white area in the middle, so using the heart cutting dies
Right.
that we have, also the lacy heart cutting dies, we have a silhouette that's also one of the cutting dies. You cut this out of some scrap cardstock, you lay that over your stencil, and then when you ink around, you're going to get all of the background and you're going to get nothing in this blank area here, which is why it looks like that on your
So it's
card.
creating a mask for you.
Right.
And I think it's just a really smart way to use the stencil and something that you already have. So
Right.
whether that's out with a cutting die, as we did, or maybe you've got die cuts or something else, it's just a really nice technique, and I've never seen it before. So that's why I was anxious to share that.
Very neat idea. Sort of makes it, give it sort of a 3D effect.
It
too.
does, very easily. Now, speaking of brilliant ideas, look at this. Well, number one, the gold on black is striking.
Oh, yeah.
And that's done with one of our favorite products, which is the embossing paste.
The gold embossing paste. So you just get the gold embossing paste. You have a mini squeegee, which makes it easy to spread. And then with some black cardstock, you're going to lay this on there. You're going to, I'm just going to show you what it looks like in case you haven't seen it
It's kind of like
before.
frosting.
Yeah, it's a little bit, and this is well used. You just sort of dig that out of there. You get some of that on your mini squeegee, and then you just swipe it across. When you do it, so you can hear that, that's because you're actually going to push it down right onto the stencil, and you're just going to swipe most of it off. And that way you'll just have this very thin layer that's only the same as the thickness of your stencil. Once you're done, so let's look at the card, you let it dry for a while, and then you just cut along the edges of some of those swirls and just get that
Look at
great
that.
cutaway look.
Isn't that beautiful and so easy? Now, the only problem I've seen people have when the very first time that they use the embossing paste is they have a tendency to go over and 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 over. And what you're doing is you're putting water into your paper when you do that 14 times.
Which causes it to sort of bubble up like that. So as quick as you, maybe not as quick as you can, but in very compact movements or whatever you just want to just swipe it,
Just swipe it.
the next area, swipe the next area, and try not to mess with it too much.
Right, and you will get something that looks exactly like this.
Just
and
beautiful.
this is, I just thought it was so beautiful to cut away that front and to have this on the inside of the card be the same black.
And that's the gold metallic paper that's going around it there that's matted with it. Just beautiful.
And some dazzles, of course, right there, but just such a striking card and so easily done. I love that. Now, then our Gail got hold of it, and look what this woman has done. Look at the card, and you can see it kind of looks like it's been misted or just a variety of colors.
It has been misted with the Perfect Airbrush. Okay, so the Perfect Airbrush is kind of one of my, it's a fun tool for me to use. That every once in a while I'll pull it out, and it looks like this. And you can use lots of different kinds of markers in there, but I love that you can use Spectrum Noir pens in there. This is just wonderful.
And you are the woman who figured that out, by the way.
All right, but you pull out this barrel, you pull out the little screw, you pull out the barrel. That makes it ready to accept a Spectrum Noir pen. I use the chisel point, the large end, and when I put it in there, I try to face it so that it's going to end up, if you can see, like that.
Is it touching or?
You'll see.
Okay.
But that's the direction. So now when I move up to it, you can see how I'm putting it up there. And then you have to adjust it. You can go past it a little bit. You might have to pull it back a little bit. You're going to test it to make sure that it gets the coverage that you want. I want to mention that I didn't yet. The Spectrum Noir pens, I used the red set and the yellow set, and right now I have one of the red pens in there. So those are both on the paper wishes. And what you do is, normally I would start by testing this on a piece of scrap paper. So I would go off to the side and I'd start spraying a little bit and make sure that I'm getting the coverage that I want. Then I place my stencil over here, and you can tape it down if you want. Right now I'm just going to sort of do it quickly. And if I don't get it to spray little spatters, then I'll adjust it and try to get a better spray, but that's working pretty good. And then
So you adjust it going further over the nozzle?
Further over or back, whatever. just kind of mess with it a little bit till it's just right, but it really doesn't take much. So then I'll do one corner, maybe another corner, a little bit in the middle. So that's what I did with this one. I just sort of moved around, getting different areas, and then I changed it, and I used the yellow pen to get all those white areas that you see and let them blend together. But I'm going to pull it off so you can see
how that's starting, getting your spattered look.
Once you add the yellow, then it blends, and then you get the oranges and these other colors that you're seeing in there.
That's just beautiful. So it was just the red and the...
I only used 2 pens, one red, one of the reds and one of the yellows.
Because when you mix them, you get orange.
Right.
I also love what you did here. Now this is with the 5 hearts and love cutting die,
right.
But you did it out of the silver and you backed it on the silver metallic.
Right, this is the silver pearl sheets. So in the kit you get, or the pack, you get silver and gold.
Right.
And they're self-adhesive, so you can pull the back off. So I ran it through, first through the cutting die machine, and then I peeled off the back and placed it onto that shadow of the heart.
That's just beautiful. So,
Yeah.
so pretty. And then the love, that's
Right.
that's doing really well too. And just a beautiful, beautiful
And
look.
I really liked it on black. It just makes everything sort of pop.
It does.
That way.
In fact, I've noticed that on several of these. Now, this is something very interesting because we discovered the metal sheets. Now, this has been used on a silver one. They come...
Wait a second, except that this one isn't the metal sheets yet.
It's not. I'm not going to say that.
This is the silver metallic
Paper, you're right.
which we don't happen to have right in front of us, but it is the 12 by 12
Right.
paper, and it's really simple to emboss this, but we use this great product to emboss it.
Now I can bring something in.
Yes.
This is a silicone rubber. It's really kind of a thin mouse pad,
Right.
but it is a texture mat that you use with your stencil,
With your stencil.
which is a surprise.
So what you're going to do with this is I'm not going to take it out of the package, but I'm just going to sort of show you the idea. You're going to start with your stencil, and here I have the cutting platform for our die cutting machine, and I place the stencil down. Then it's already been done, but here's the silver metallic paper that I placed on top of the stencil, and I actually placed it the silver side up. Then I placed the embossing mat on this side of it. Does that sound right?
No, it
Does that
doesn't.
sound counterintuitive?
It does.
Was I supposed to put that down first?
I think
so.
so.
I'll tell you what, I had to do this a couple of times to get it just right. And that pushes it. There we go.
That pushes it
I
up.
put the texture mat down first on top of that cutting platform.
Then the stencil.
Then the stencil, and then the paper here.
And would the directions be in the gallery?
The directions are certainly on the gallery. So actually, this was Debbie's card, and I followed her directions.
Okay.
Once I looked at her directions, it worked great. then I put the other cutting die on, or cutting platform on top, ran it through like that, and when you're done, you get this beautiful look.
It is absolutely gorgeous.
Right.
It's
Send
gorgeous
all
that way.
comments to here at the Webisode if you get confused at all.
And then you swipe the top of it with a Surfaces ink
I
pad.
believe so.
Yeah,
I think it's
the
a Caribbean
right.
Surfaces ink.
And then the black dots are black jewel dazzles.
Isn't it beautiful? There's also some glimmer paper back here that was done in the same way. So you're just seeing that strip. And then these are these beautiful butterfly dazzles.
Right. What I think is just wonderful is that with that texture mat, now you can do something else with your stencils, is to make them into embossing folders, which is really kind of amazing. And if you have any of the metal stencils that have been so popular in years past, that's going to work this way too.
Great. So use your stencils as embossing folders.
Well, this one used the metallic paper.
Right.
This one used metallic sheets.
And they come in an array of colors as well as in silver.
Right. This is the jewel tones, and there is another tone. So you can see there's 12 pieces in here, and they've got paper between them, so they're not sliding as easily.
Great, all of these jewel tone colors, 12 pieces like it says. And the great thing is that you see that they bend, when they bend, they're like metal, they stay that way. So it really is metal.
It's really very neat.
And so that was used, what you're seeing on the top and the bottom here are pieces of that metal, and they were used with that Textures embossing mat that we were talking about. You use that with the stencil in between that sandwich of your cutting platforms, and it will emboss the metal.
Right, and this was done on the purple sheet, then it was sanded, and then that same Caribbean Surfaces ink pad was kind of gone over the top. Now this piece here is a silver hammered, and it just looks like that. So that's a piece of paper that was glued over the top, and more jewel dazzles are adding those dots. So a couple of ways you can do it. Now there is also a metallic sheet. These are 6 by 12, so just that there's lots of options, which is
that big silver piece.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of options. Now, one other technique, and this is kind of amazing to me. So this is done with distress paints, believe it or not.
Distress paint.
Okay.
And you start with that background. So what you're seeing here is cardstock that's been treated, and I'm going to show the end result and just talk about it a little bit. So you take distress paint, and the two that were used for this background are tarnished brass and antiqued bronze. And when you open them up, they have a sponge top on the top, a dabber, and you take your craft sheet and you go over your craft sheet, a couple of lines of this, a couple of lines of this color, and then you take that cardstock and you just, like that, you can see the back.
Do you mist it with water first?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Okay.
A little bit of water too to make it a little liquidy.
Yeah.
And then you swipe your cardstock through. You can sort of do that a couple of times to get it covered. And when it dries, it just has that beautiful shiny effect.
But wait a minute, we're not there yet.
We're not quite there
Okay.
yet, because now we need that stencil.
That I took away from you.
That's all right. And we take antique linen distress paint. You dab that all over the stencil. Actually, I think what Lene did is that she put some of it on the craft sheet and then went like that to get it all over the stencil.
Oh, she inked it, basically.
She inked it and used it as a stamp.
You're kidding me.
So now we've used it as a stamp, an embossing folder, and a
My
stencil.
word, not bad. So there is the end result. And again, now you don't see the white as brightly white as it is, because it's been diluted, because it's been touching all of the brass and the gold or whatever it was.
Right.
But just a beautiful look. And then done a little bit of coloring onto the white flowers. That comes in a grouping that works just really well.
With the distress paints, and that was brass and bronze. Those are the two.
Right.
And they're just beautiful colors.
Gorgeous,
They're so shiny.
gorgeous, gorgeous. And the paper that's used back here has also a, it's printed pattern paper, and those will be in the gallery, the
I think
instructions
that's
for you.
from Robin's Red paper pack.
Is it?
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure.
And then inside, there's really a nice look at everything, so you
Just
can use.
beautiful.
Always do more paper than you think you're going to use,
Right.
because then you can use it like
Use
this.
the scraps like that. And you know, if you're doing this and you kind of didn't like the first one, so you make another one, maybe make 2 or 3 that are kind of interesting, save those, and you can use them for scraps for some other cards.
And very
sometime.
often when you go back, you're going to like it.
Right, right.
Now we're going to, so that's enough with all over swirls. You can just do everything in the world with it.
Now we're into fancy heart and
Are
words.
into fancy hearts, and look at this very first card. Beautiful.
It is
Look
just
at that.
beautiful. And this was this one done with the stickles?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And I just want to show you that it is also on the back of the package. In fact, 2 of them that we're going to show you are on the back of the package, and the materials are right there. But just to give you another look. So how clever to use the outside shape, trace that,
Right.
cut it out, and then let the pattern be the stickled area.
Right. So I believe that it was traced and then gone over with stickles. I'm not quite sure if the stencil was actually left in place.
Oh, I hope so, because that would be
Yeah,
so
it would
much
be a lot
easier.
Okay, no, I think you're right. I think the stencil is left
Yeah.
in place, and you go over it with stickles, and then when you lift it, you get that beautiful look. And I like that parts,
Yeah,
the little
that
pieces on
swirl.
the side, the swirls were used.
Right.
So you can mask off all of the other areas of your stencil with Post-it notes. That's something we do pretty frequently.
Now, this love was done by tracing the love
Right.
onto the pattern paper.
And then cutting it out.
Cutting it out and then matting it. So that's a little bit of what is called fussy cutting, and that kind of is. But what a beautiful look.
That
Again,
is just a beautiful.
metallic ribbon and some of the petaloo flowers, and just a beautiful
And if you're
look.
wondering, that looks like the Unforgettable paper pack to me. So that's,
Okay.
and that's all on the gallery.
And this is Gypsy Jewels, but look at that silver embossing paste.
Right.
It is gorgeous.
And it's done right on the purple suede. So if you ever wondered if it would stick on suede, that works just perfectly.
It will.
And this is the same technique. This is the silver embossing powder, embossing paste instead of the gold. And then it's just swiped on there with that mini squeegee. And what a beautiful look. I love that it was also, it looks like the edge was treated a little bit with, oh yeah, well that's part of the stencil.
There you go.
I thought it was matted for a second. That's right.
Right.
The stencil has this outline on it.
Right, so you get that
do
edge.
that, and then you cut it all out after it's dry. And of course, you're going to mask off the other words just so you can get the word love down here.
Right, and that is the love that's right there. So you've got love in 2 fonts, 2 sizes, because that way you've got everything you need. And this, however, is the silver jewel border dazzles along the edges.
So that makes a nice edge here, and it looks like silver hammered paper was used to mat the word love.
Looks like it. So that's really nice. And on the inside, this is also that silver embossing paste. Same thing here on the suede. So you really get a lot of variety with that one stencil.
With one stencil,
And
just by
just
breaking it
gorgeous.
up a little
Just
bit
gorgeous.
with Post-it notes and masking.
That Gypsy Jewels papers is just
That's
so
right.
gorgeous. Okay, here is another one. Now this one is going to wiggle. Yes, it is. It has one of the wobble springs on it, so your love heart is thumping. Now you have the what you're going to show us on this.
Yeah, very simple process. So that the stencil was placed over white cardstock so that you can't see it. And then we take the Versamark pad, and I think that a sponge was used with this one. You take a sponge and then you just sponge it through there. You can do it this way too, but sometimes if it's a little too juicy,
Yeah.
it might go under the stencil. So that's one of the ways of doing it. Just kind of test and see what works best. Once you have it Versamark, then you remove that stencil and sprinkle it with glitter embossing powder.
Right, let's get in close so you can really see that glitter. And what a nice line it gives. I think by using that cosmetic sponge, then it's not going to go seeping under,
Right.
as you
So
mentioned.
it's a nice fine
Yeah.
line there, and that's the new red glitz, I
Right,
think. Wow.
the Wow embossing.
powder.
Now, the big heart, of course, has been done with the stencil, as you can see. This is on red peacock paper. You can
Right.
see there's a bit of
So it was just
texture
traced
to it.
out. So it's just traced and cut out. The same with the love word. I love all of the little black jewel dazzles going
Right.
along the bottom.
It's
of
kind
it
of
like
reinforcing
that.
love.
Hey, it's moving around. Did we
It
talk
is
about
the wobble spring,
the
yes.
wobble spring? So cute.
And then all you need is love on the inside. Again, another piece of
The little
what was done on the
strip,
front.
yeah. Save your extras.
Yes, and let your beating heart tell its story. Now, that's what we've done with the heart stencil. Now we're going to move into the embossing folders.
Okay.
And we started with a background in the stencil, so we're going to start with the background. We're calling this Wind and Waves, and again, on the back, I'm going to show you that project. One thing I want to mention with Hot Off the Press is that our stencils are silk screened on the front, which means that they're just easier to identify. It's just a nice extra touch, and it just makes it so much easier, and we're all about making life easier.
Right.
Now, here we go. There is our Wind and Waves.
It's so bright and beautiful. So you look at this and you go, oh, that's why that embossing folder was made. It's obviously, water and whatnot. It looks like it's under the seat.
It's a good first step with
Right.
it. And what do you have over there?
What I have over here is how that was done. So here's the embossing folder. You start by opening it up, and you notice that it has that silk screened image on this side, and that tells you that that's the debossed side, and that the embossed side of the folder's on this side, so it's going to push up through into there. And this is the side that you want to color, because if you color this side, then that's going to color your background. And so that's what happened. When it was placed in there, it was placed like this. This side was down here because this side was colored with 2 fluid chalks. We have Blue Lagoon and Ice Jade. And you start with Ice Jade. You open this up and you just put it all over this side of the embossing folder.
The silkscreen side.
The silkscreen side.
Okay.
And then you take the Blue Lagoon, and we used a stylus handle like this, and you pick up some of that Blue Lagoon and you just sort of sponge it on in just a few different areas to just sort of get a little bit of blue-green on there. Once you're done, then that white, it was white cardstock, went in there like that, it closed up, and after it was embossed, it came out like this. And so now you've got the raised edges, which are white, and the background, which is those different colors. And then you just take one of those colors, which is probably Blue Lagoon, and you can try to swipe it like this, or you can use that stylus. I think if I do this, I can just barely touch. If you want it a little lighter, you might try that stylus, but you can see it just picks up the top. And isn't that beautiful?
It's just gorgeous. And we did add some jewel dazzles to highlight the bubbles coming up. Just beachy are dazzles that are coming in there. You can see them. This big shell was placed on vellum so that you can see that. And this is the Blue Circles holographic paper just in the back, and some of the web ribbon.
Some of the web
Yeah.
ribbon. It's all cut up into little strips. It's usually pretty wide, but I love those. I love that that was backed on vellum.
I do too. It's just a beautiful look. So this is a nice background. Now we've got this for, I guess this would be the waves, do you
Right.
think? Well, for the wind, we've turned it horizontally and we've paired it with the Four Seasons tree cutting die.
I just think that is such a perfect combination. And you've got, here's the embossed cardstock back there, and it was hit with just some chalk.
Right.
To get some of the blues and the purples, just a basic chalk set.
And you can see that that has a really light touch, and then the tree on top is simply out of cardstock, and snowflakes on it, which are part of the
Beautiful.
cutting die.
You know, this is great, and I know it's not close to winter, or it's winter, but it's not close to Christmas time, but you could also do this and add little leaves on there or something, and those
could.
come with
Right.
that cutting die set. You could add flowers.
It's got the Four Seasons.
leaves, sure.
Right.
So it
If you
would
wanted to
still work.
do this for Valentine's Day, have hearts
Yeah,
all over it,
I
so
love
lots
that.
of options. But that background just, it gives you something, yet it doesn't overpower the focal,
Right.
which in this case is the tree.
It's the tree, but you can
In that
still
case,
pick up on it.
was the seashells.
I
So
love those two very opposing looks.
Right.
It's just a beautiful way to use that embossing.
And I love this. I
Okey-doke.
think this is just a brilliant.
It is beautiful. And I love that it's sort of a rustic, you know, it's kind of on again and off again with the, you know, some of it is there, some of it is not. It's just a beautiful, it reminds me of like a classic oil painting or something.
It's just absolutely stunning. Now,
Maybe I'll get set up and
this
show
is
you.
this is using, I'll bring this part in. This is using the Mega Flakes from our friends at Indigo Blue in England. This is the Lancashire Rose, and that's what it looks like. So this is the sheets of metal leaf that are all kind of pre-flittered for you, and this combination of colors. And then we are going to be using the Scoochie foam.
Scoochie foam. that's
Scoochie
right.
foam and the flitter glue, I bet.
Right,
Now, if you can get
so-
all of those and say them 3 times fast, you win something.
It's all on the gallery, of course, but here's that cardstock. I have this very used bottle of flitter glue, so we use it quite a bit here. And I have just some scrap cardstock because I'm going to put some of the flitter glue on there. Open this up, make like a little puddle of it.
You are.
There we go. And then I'm going to actually use the sponge to get that onto the cardstock. So take a little bit of time, get it all over. And then we're going to add the Mega Flakes on top there. I want to make sure that I have enough. I'm not going to do the entire, I'm just going to do just part of the cardstock here. So I pretty well have it on there. Then I take these wonderful Mega Flakes, and they are all pre-flaked for you, and make sure your fan is off.
I was
and
going
the
to say,
windows
and
are
don't
closed.
sneeze.
Right, don't sneeze. We're not going to do that. And then you just sort of move them around. Make sure it's getting all over the glue, you know. it's easier just to sort of dump them
It
all on
is. It's
there.
kind of like embossing powder, just dump a bunch.
Move it all into there, and I sort of like to press it down and then move it, so because you get sort of flat, more of a flat flake look. There you go. It's fun. It's like playing in gold.
It is, but they're so light.
And sticky.
And sticky.
Once it gets on that glue, it gets on your fingers, so that's just sort of the nature of it. Okay, so it's pretty well stuck in there. Then you get the scoochy sponge and start removing it.
And it just goes like that. Now,
Just like that.
notice that all of these pieces that you're moving around are still going to be usable. So don't
are,
throw
right.
anything away.
But look at that. Can you see how some of them make just like one big flat flake, and then you get lots of tiny little flakes too. I start by sort of scooting it off so I can get most of it off, and then I start burnishing it. And when you burnish it, you get more of a shiny look. You can really see it start to sort of pick up and shine.
Now, all of this will return back to that jar because
will.
it's reusable.
Right.
You don't lose anything. Even these kind of, when you get down to these very tiny pieces, those still can be used. So.
But the next thing you do after this is place that into your embossing folder. You're going to emboss it. Once it comes out, it's got that raised look,
Right.
and then you can either hit the top of those embossed areas with this Stays On ink pad. You can just scoot over that after it's been embossed. Or what Debbie did was she actually used Versamark and black embossing powder, so it would get that nice shiny look, which is just beautiful. So either way, that works.
Maybe you can kind of see the shine. I can
Right.
see it in person. There you go. See.
So a couple
either
of different
way,
options, yeah.
but it is absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know of any other way that you can get this kind of a look. I think it's just stunning.
It's beautiful. Those metal flakes, they do a lot to just add a
They
really
do.
big punch to every project.
And I never thought about doing it with embossing folders, so I absolutely love it. And we have added some of the red fireworks holographic paper. You see that red flashing. You can kind of choose whatever color you want to pick out of there
Right.
to really highlight with your matting. And the Happy Birthday Dazzles are great. Inside, we just have the cardstock and the holographic and dazzles, but just spectacular. Also good for lots of themes. So, and what I think is fun is that the wind and waves, it's not wind or waves, it's just
Right.
all over swirls.
All over
So
swirls
it's
and
great.
beautiful backgrounds.
Great idea. Now, our last embossing folder is this one. We said backgrounds, we said focals, and we said words. Well, here's the majority of the words.
Right.
All happy birthday, all over. This is designed so that you can have it this way, you can have it that way.
You can cut it apart, you can have
Right.
separate words, you can have just pieces.
There is an ID on the back that we'll be showing you, but first I want to just show you this card. Now this too came from the embossing folders, the Premier embossing folders, Personal Shopper. And this is done on a tag, as you can see. The tag was covered with the papers.
With the gumdrop paper, or hopscotch.
Hopscotch papers.
Hopscotch papers, and then the whole tag was run through the embossing folder.
Right.
Actually, the embossing folder was only placed on the bottom part.
That's
So
right.
I don't have that embossing folder in front of me, but that's the
Right
way
there.
you would, yeah, the way you would do that. Let's see. It would just be this portion of it. So you've got that tag, and you're going to place it just like that,
Yeah,
just to get the bottom of it done.
right.
So,
So you can think of it in those terms. Then this one has, it's got some sparkle on it, but it also has the white.
right, because it was sanded. So with that paper on top of it and having been embossed, then you sand the top of it off and it gets down to the core of the paper.
Super easy. Just go like this. Keep it gentle because what you're doing is you're removing the paper,
Right.
and you're removing the ink, and you're getting to the base
That's
paper.
right. You want to make sure that it's, you've glued that paper on. You want to make sure it's real dry. The glue is dry before you do that, or it might kind of ball up once you get
Okay.
down to it.
Now, I'm not sure if you can see this. We'll get in really close, but this was also sprayed with some of the spray
There it is.
glitter.
Yeah.
And it just adds a really nice finish.
Comes in a small can. The spray glitter, it comes in silver and gold.
Right, and this was silver. And then we have some border jewel dazzles added at the
Beautiful.
top and at the bottom.
I love the ribbons at the top. They actually go with the
Yes.
hopscotch papers. All of those come in with that ribbon set, and I love the twine with it.
Very clever to do. So just a beautiful look. Now, a similar look is this card. However, this one is using the hopscotch pattern
Right.
paper. This one has a different technique.
Similar in that they're both white on the top, but there are
Right.
two different ways to achieve that. And the way this one was done, I'm going to show you. Here's the white cardstock. It was embossed, and then the top of it was gone over with the Versamark ink pad. So you've got that embossed, those raised images. You go all over it with the Versamark ink pad. You dust it with white embossing powder.
The superfine white
The
embossing
super fine,
powder.
yeah, right. If you want all of those tiny little edges to be nice and fine, you have to use the super fine embossing powder. And so it sticks just on that top of all of the words where I was showing you with the Versamark. Then you heat set it with the heat gun. And then you get out, I've got sort of a map here.
Here, why don't I
Thank
give you a craft sheet?
Yeah, my other craft sheet has metal flake all over it.
It does.
Mega flakes. And then you use two fluid chalk inks. I have Berrylicious and Periwinkle, and I have another the stylus over here. And then you just go over, and when you go over the embossed areas with the fluid chalk ink, it's going to go onto the background, and then you can just wipe it off the top. So I'm just very quickly going to do just a little bit of
And
it.
by the way, that stylus, the pads, and the chalk ink pads are from Clear Snap, and just really, really enjoy their products.
Right, so get some different areas
Yeah.
with the pink, and then get some areas with the periwinkle.
Pretty, pretty.
Yeah, and then you want to sort of
Yeah.
mix the colors in between them, just like so. And what I did is sort of as I went along, because I didn't want it I didn't want the colors to sink into that embossing powder very much. You can either use a wet paper towel, or you can use a baby wipe and go over and sort of wipe it off
Okay.
of the embossing on top. Another little trick that I figured out after I did this whole thing and wiped everything off, I noticed that it was kind of drab. The embossing powder wasn't very shiny anymore. So if you take your heat gun and just kind of quickly go over it again, just melts it a little bit and it brings the gloss right back.
Oh, like this.
Like that.
Just a beautiful look. And what I love about this technique is you can use any colors you want.
Right.
And that's just really nice.
And that's, to me, that's kind of a tie-dye effect. I really
It
thought that was
is.
kind of a neat look.
And with this embossing folder, you can see the word gifts is debossed, where surprise is embossed. So you've got that variety going on, lots of different fonts, and that works so nicely. So got that going.
Okay.
Now this is the one that's shown on the package, and this was done with some
With a couple of different
Okay.
things, really. So you start by embossing it and
Right.
with just white cardstock.
Step
you
one.
Get it embossed. Then you go over the tops of the letters with a fluid chalk ink pad, and I think it was sponge sugar, something like
Okay.
that. A very pale pink over the top, and then it was just lightly spritzed with Dilution's Funky
Okay.
Fuchsia, if I'm not mistaken.
Now the birthday
Now
was
the birthday
highlighted.
was highlighted, and that was used with Versamark. I think I used a Versa marker, which I don't have
Oh, okay,
on
the
me.
pen.
Right. You use a Versa marker pen. It's got a fine tip, and you just go over just the top of the words of birthday, and then you emboss it with red Wow glitter
That's
embossing
right.
powder.
Very
And I
fun.
actually decided to use a fine black pen to sort of make some little highlights, shadows.
I was
right
kind of
next to the
wondering
words.
where those lines came from.
And it follows those lines really easily because they're
Okay.
embossed. You have a line to just go next to. You don't have to worry that if you're not an artist or something, you just follow that line. The line guides your pen.
And you'll have this on the back of the package as well as in the gallery, so you can see exactly where you did those lines.
So that's just kind of a fun little project.
This is the Pink Hearts holographic paper on the outside, and you can see the ribbon doing a nice job there. Now, the last project is this, where we are combining. So we have the wind and waves, and we have our birthday words, and
right.
just cutting out different areas of them and inking them with different
so
paper.
you can use those birthday words, you can cut them
Yeah.
out and put them on any card.
And the jewel dazzles are doing duty, just connecting everything together.
Right, I think that this was just embossed on red cardstock,
Yeah.
and then a red fluid chalk ink pad was run over the top of those embossed areas.
And in this case, they really wanted it to look a little messy, so that was the idea behind
Right.
this. And then just simply cutting them out, offsetting them as they went down the card front. On the inside of the card, happy birthday is proclaimed, and you can see more of that embossing.
So every sentiment you need is right there on
Right.
that one embossing folder.
How great is that? So we have, as you can tell, lots of ways to use our all over swirls, our
Fancy heart and words.
as well as winds and waves,
And our
birthday words.
birthday words.
So lots of ideas. I hope you've enjoyed this. Our team had a great time.
Have fun.